is Rory O'Toole.
And my name is Matt Schultz.
And this is How to Be,
the podcast where we discuss ancient wisdom, modern hacks, paperback self-help books, and pithy platitudes,
in the hopes of figuring out the best way to live this one precious and wild life.
Today we're discussing personality tests. Can a free online test really be the key to self-understanding and self-optimization? Is there even a fixed self to know? Join us as we find out who we really are.
Hi, Nat.
Hi, Roar. How you doing?
I'm doing the same as I was a couple hours ago when we talked on the phone.
Listen, can we get right into it?
Yeah.
So we're recording this on Zoom
For the first time.
For the very first time. And could you describe to the people how we started the call? How I started the call, the little gag I did?
Oh, sure. You pretended like you weren't there and then you popped up from underneath your desk.
And how did I find that funny? Did I laugh? Did I have joy in my face?
You found it to be very droll indeed.
So one of the questions on one of these many personality tests we took in advance of this podcast, I know I'm jumping in a little too fast here. We'll back it on up in a second. Was, do you radiate joy?
Oh, yes. I remember that.
And I said no. But then when I popped up just now, I was like, sometimes I do radiate joy.
You felt very joyful. Well, it wasn't a binary, was it? For most of these personality tests, there were 4 options.
Yeah, it's like somewhat.
Yeah.
I think I gave myself a hard no. I think that was ill-advised of me.
Now, I think I probably put neutral because I actually think that, and this is something we'll get into, but sometimes at work, I think I radiate joy more than I do in my normal life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I was like, I'm so grumpy. I'm so often grumpy. And something I really learned about from doing these personality tests is it's like, it's all about where you are right now,
Yeah, I think that's one of the key takeaways that you and I took away from this week's podcast work is that if I had taken some of these tests 10 years ago, I would have been quite a different lassie.
Oh, absolutely. Excuse me for a second. I'm going to pour a little pee now.
And anytime you want to make noises like that, you can just feel free to mute yourself, Matt.
Well, I want the people to know that I'm pouring myself a little pee now.
A little Ramona Pinot Grigio?
I wish.
Impossible to find on the internet. I've tried.
It's like, are they trying not to make money?
I don't know why these housewives products can't. Are logistics that big of an issue? Why isn't there a logistics company that will take half the cut to help Ramona's Pinot Grigio be in my fridge?
Or, yeah, because we're buying it.
I'm buying it. I would buy probably like 60% of the housewives products. And none of them have made it into my house besides Vicky Gunvalson's perfume that Lexi bought me.
Now, I didn't tell you about this, but there was a very special housewives product that I almost got on this most recent trip to New York that I took. So as some of our more dedicated listeners may know, I went on a number of dates in 2011 with a man who later became Luann's cabaret manager.
Heavily featured on the show, by the way.
Heavily featured on the show. Maybe 2015, I saw him again. This is still before he was a cabaret manager. I messaged him, saw him on Grindr again when I was in New York. And I was like, hey, how are you doing? He didn't remember me. But
how could he not remember you?
I don't know, but he was still very into me. He was like, I would have remembered you. I was like, well, you haven't. And then this most recent trip, I saw him and I was like,
in real
okay.
life.
No, on Grindr. And I was like, which is real life to an extent. I'm like, okay, he's Jewish. He's friends with Luann. Let's do this. Messaged him, no response.
Wow. You're a little long in the tooth, you think?
I think I missed my chance. That was my chance. 2011. Back then, he was doing a one-man show about Patti LuPone, and I thought I was too good for him.
Can you believe that?
How wrong I was.
Wow.
I blew it, Roar. You can blow it in this life.
You really can. And that's a great example of it.
But maybe if I had gone, would I have blocked him from becoming Luann's cabaret manager?
I mean, if he moved to Israel to be with you.
You gotta trust that God knew what God was doing.
No regrets, right?
No regrets.
That was not a question on any of the personality tests. Do you live with regret?
No, you're right. It was not, they were not interested in regrets. And I think that maybe is that a big part? I feel like that's a big part of one's personality, one's relationship to the past.
Well, I was just going to say that there are a lot of questions on, I think, each of the personality tests we took that were very future oriented. I think about the future. I plan my future.
I worry about the future.
I worry about the future. I don't really remember any that said I'm mull over the past obsessively, writing down the people who have wronged me.
There was one question that was like something about like difficult social situations. Like, I don't get over it easily.
Yeah. I think there was one that was like, it was like, I find it difficult to forgive people, especially when they've wronged me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that's really only scratching the surface. I think regrets would have been an interesting one.
I mean, the way that past influences people can, be deeply obsessed with the past.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. I mean, there's nothing that scares me more than the idea of regret. I find it deeply troubling.
Oh, is that right?
Yes, the thought of getting to a certain age and thinking, I blew it.
Mm-hmm.
What's sadder than that?
Yeah, that is troubling. There are things that are sadder for me personally, though, but that speaks to our different personalities. Okay, so should we be more direct in introducing this topic of today?
Yes, indeed, we should.
So Matt and I today, we're going to be discussing personality tests. Can a personality be ascertained from a questionnaire online? Can you determine it yourself, or would someone else be better off taking it on your behalf?
Yes.
Various subtopics. I
think subtopics indeed, but I would say that the uber topic, the over story is, in keeping with our mission statement, how to be. Is this helpful? Does it help to ask these questions, to say, which type am I?
Am I introverted? Am I extroverted? How will that influence how I am in my life? How will that guide me?
Yeah, what is the point?
And so in order to sort of do our little preliminary research on this, we took 4 personality tests, sort of the 4 classic ones, or 4 of them that are, I feel like, the most popular, let's say. Myers-Briggs, Enneagram, which I feel like is a little bit newer, and then the Big 5, and then which Harry Potter house are you?
Yes. And which Harry Potter house are you?
So, I've never read Harry Potter. So when you sent me that test.
This is the Pottermore. This is the gold standard. I believe J.K. Rowling, her very canceled self.
I think she did. They said that on the site, that she created this test. So at certain points, you have to choose right or left. You don't know what that means. You have to choose sun or moon. Certain things that I feel like you maybe, I think mean something to her, but wouldn't mean to me. Anyway, can you guess what house I am?
I think I think a Ravenclaw.
You're right. I'm
Yeah.
Ravenclaw. And what is Ravenclaw? They didn't really give you a summary at the end.
Ravenclaws are brainy,
Oh,
and that's kind of their thing. They're serious, they're studious.
do they radiate joy?
I don't think they do, frankly. But I don't know. They're not like heavily featured in the world of the book.
I was gonna say, like, I feel like, again, I don't read Harry Potter, but I feel like you never hear about this house.
Well, you mostly hear about Gryffindor, which is where our heroes live, and Slytherin, which is where our villains live. And then Hufflepuff are kind of like sweet, nice, friendly, but not too smart, but like very amiable.
Mm-hmm.
And Ravenclaw are very like sharp and studious.
Um, and so what are you? Can I guess?
Guess away.
Are you Gryffindor?
I'm Gryffindor.
I had a feeling. I knew it.
I didn't even take the test. I just logged into my Pottermore account and, there was my result from when I took it the last time. I probably should have retaken
You
it.
should have retaken it. Yeah, of
I didn't
course.
want to. I didn't want to risk not
Oh,
being Gryffindor again.
okay. Now, I've seen the first Harry Potter movie,
Hmm.
and what I gather from the interesting thing about the three protagonists who all live in Gryffindor is they do have different personalities.
Yes.
So the sorting hat must go very deep.
The Sorting Hat goes very deep because Hermione, you would think that
Ravenclaw.
she's a Ravenclaw, or Neville
Ron
Longbottom, you would think a Hufflepuff.
Ron Weasley a Hufflepuff even.
Ron Weasley, well, the whole Weasley clan is Gryffindors. It's hard to sort of separate them from that. You could be a Weasley, that red hair of yours.
The whole Weasley family's in one house.
Yes.
Oh
Yes.
wow. Grandfathered in.
Personality has a genetic component, apparently.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so now you're ready to go to Ravenclaw.
Yeah, I can't wait to tell Lexi who said I would be Slytherin.
you know, what we learned in Harry Potter is that being in Slytherin is kind of a choice too.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's like, well, actually, I think that the Sorting Hat just sort of screamed it out when it was on Draco Malfoy's head. But maybe that's because he had already made an internal choice to be evil
You can't change houses.
midway through. I don't know what the school's policy about that is. If you're being bullied in your house, if you're really unhappy with your
Or if
house.
you change as a person. I mean, that's kind of a topic I'd like to talk about is we are taking these personality tests at a specific time in our life. But again, like a few years ago, I would have very different answers, I think. I've changed in the last, now that I'm in my 30s, I feel like I have you have a longer view of the self over the years
Mm-hmm.
and certain characteristics that, maybe have been enduring, but many, many that have changed.
Absolutely. And I think beyond the sort of question of change, for me, is also the question of just being circumstantial. Like, not that I've changed and
Yeah.
I was that and now I'm this, but more like I'm that. Like, how am I in this like Boston environment where I
Ah,
live right now versus like how am I when I lived in Tel Aviv versus when I'm visiting friends? I certainly feel like when I'm in LA visiting you that I radiate a degree of joy.
yeah. Well, I think that there are two different things. There's the circumstantial stuff, and then there's just the things that you grow out of, maybe, or personality traits that circumstances in your life have made those personality traits untenable and you've really evolved out of them.
Mhm. Can we get an example on
Yeah,
that?
like for example, I feel like I used to be a lot more petulant
Hmm.
when I was younger, and I had the luxury of that because I
You mean like when you were 3?
like well into my like early 20s.
Hmm.
But now I'm an adult person and have to live in the world and have to like do things for myself, and I also have to enjoy my life. So it doesn't really serve me to have that characteristic anymore.
also there's, I have had my personality, I've basically had personality plastic surgery by going on antidepressants.
Oh yeah, that's true too. I mean, like I was just thinking about, well, that period of time when I was depressed, really depressed for like a year or so in my early 20s, certain qualities that were very pervasive then, like um prone to being irritable, for example,
Mhm.
don't have that at all anymore. I'm not an easily irritated person.
Oh, I still am.
Yes, that had nothing to do with the depression.
But yeah, going on antidepressants is kind of like it's getting a personality lift a little bit. It's not like a radical reconstructive facial surgery. It's just a lift and a tuck, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Irritability, lift it. Moodiness, tuck it. Because I am, so this is, and I didn't just learn this from this test. As you know, I've been sort of realizing this about myself recently, that I'm not a very emotional person.
Right.
And I guess I'm kind of surprised about that about myself because I think of myself as like, a Wells for boys kind of boy.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and
Well, because you were a very sensitive child.
yes, and am I still sensitive? Like I have a poet's soul, don't I? No, you're not convinced
Well,
that
no,
I
no, no,
do.
no. I'm thinking about the word sensitive and like all the meanings it could have, right?
Yeah,
Like you're capable of being moved,
I'm capable of being moved.
but and you are capable of being offended and having
I'm
your
cap-
feelings hurt.
yes, I can have my ego can be bruised.
And
But
you
yeah,
feel sympathy for people in a real way.
yes.
But no, you do not get really
I don't get
bogged down in emotionality.
yes. And like all the questions about like, do you make decisions with your heart or with your head? I was like, I really think I make them with my head. That doesn't always mean they're smart.
No, absolutely not. Well, that's the thing too. Is like all these personality tests have said that I'm not a very emotional person. I'm a very logical person, and that is true. But to say that I'm not emotional would be deeply inaccurate. I am very, very, very emotional.
Hmm. But yeah, I guess you are. You are. You are.
Yeah,
You have
I am.
emotions.
I'm very emotional. Like, but I do not lead my life with my emotions.
Yeah, I guess that's
And I really don't take them seriously the way some people do.
yeah, I
And
guess that also is a big difference. It's like how seriously do you take these things?
yeah, and I don't because I've gone to a lot of therapy
Mhm.
and I've learned that feelings aren't facts.
Effective. Effective.
Effective therapy, not bullshit therapy.
So Roar, Miss Ravenclaw, why don't you tell me,
What else I am?
yeah, what do you get on your Myers-Briggs?
I have now Myers-Briggs, people have recently, I think it used to be something of a standard, something that people really had a lot of faith in. And in recent years, there's sort of been a revisitation of the validity of it. People are very critical of it because it sort of came about by a mother and a daughter, early 1900s, and they, were more like armchair psychologists. They weren't properly trained. But to that, I say, who was? I
Yeah,
think they were contemporaneous with Jung. So, um, but I've always
that's all
like,
about archetypes.
yeah, it's all about archetypes, like many of these tests are. And I came away and I have been taking this test for years and years for various work, school, whatever. I always come away the same, which is why I have faith in it, as an ENTJ, which is the commander, this sort of illogical, or not illogical, very logical, rational leader type. And there are things about it that I really resonate, and then there are things about it that don't. Like, for example, an ENTJ is someone who's very competitive, and we know that I am really not. Someone who's very hyper concerned with like external success, definitely not.
Mm-hmm. Now, I got the commander too the first time I took it.
Which is weird because we're not the same.
No, and I instantly felt that it was wrong about me. First of all, it's not what I've done this test before, and I knew that I normally get an I. I usually start with an I for
Right.
let's go through it.
It's a binary. So the
Each
first
letter is its own little binary.
Each letter is its own little binary. So the first one, you can either be an I introverted or an E extroverted. The second one is you can either be S sensing or N intuitive. The next one, you could either be T thinking or F feeling. And the final one, you can either be P perceiving or J judging. So for me, I am an extroverted, intuitive, thinking, judging, ENTJ. And for you, Matt?
So first of all, I want to say that the S, I've never gotten an S in mine ever. I think I've had a lot of variation when I've taken this throughout the years.
Okay, that's interesting because I haven't.
S, yeah, you've been very consistent, which makes sense for you because you're a consistent Cassie. But S, I've never gotten. Feels utterly foreign to me. I did get I got INFP when I took it again.
Okay. Did that resonate with you?
Yes, and that is if it's I'm not sure if that's what I normally get, but it's a lot closer. Because I know I always start with IN.
Mm-hmm.
Now, INFP. So here are some things about the INFP. Let's see. So it's the mediator, quiet and unassuming, which is like not me. Vibrant, passionate inner lives. Sure. Creative and imaginative. They happily lose themselves in daydreams. It's not really it's not really me. Idealistic and empathetic. Mediators long for deep, soulful relationships, and they feel called to help others. Sure, called. Not always answering the call, but I do feel I hear the call. But because this don't ask me to carpool. I'm not interested in
giving you a ride.
I'm just not looking for a carpool situation right now. That's what I say. I feel I do not feel called to help others, apparently. But
no, you do. The number of volunteer situations that you've gotten yourself into and then felt miserable about being in, you feel the call. But
I feel the call.
That's where it ends.
That's where it ends for me. Mediators may sometimes feel lonely or invisible, adrift in a world that doesn't seem to appreciate the traits that make them unique.
You do feel lonely.
Must we? I guess I do feel lonely. Do I feel invisible? Yeah, sure.
Oh, really? I don't feel that way.
Am I adrift in a world that doesn't appreciate me? Also, sure. It's not true.
Well, so this is to say that for me, I mean, yes to some, yes to no. It's kind of like the same with astrology, right? I mean, this also, speaks to like, what is a personality and can it be discerned through a questionnaire? Well, according to the American Psychological Association, a personality refers to individual differences in characteristics, patterns of thinking, feeling, and behaving. The study of personality focuses on two broad areas. One is understanding individual differences in particular personality characteristics, such as sociability or irritability. The other is understanding how the various parts of a person come together as a whole.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, we have an intuitive sense, I think, of what personality is, but it also is kind of a modern concept. Um, you know, the study of it certainly is relatively modern. It came about with Freud and Jung and early psychology, and I think some other psychologists in the 70s too, was really on the forefront of that. But we certainly, I mean, you can read literature from way before then, and you understand that people had a sense that an individual has a way of being. Jane Austen might have referred to it as a comportment, or what's the word I'm looking for?
I don't know.
Well,
They might have talked about if someone's, which humors are dominant.
yeah, the idea of humors.
Yeah.
um
Person with too much spleen.
yeah, too much phlegm.
Yeah.
You don't want that.
Now, I sometimes wonder, I'm like, because I have some sense of my personality, who I am, what role I play in the world. And that's one way I think about personality, is like, it's this interface. It's like a face. But then I'm like, so sometimes when I'm like alone in my room, I'm like, is my personality like operative right now? Like, is it on? Because I'm
Yeah.
just here with myself, like staring at like a YouTube video or something, and I'm like, is the thing even on?
Well, I
Like,
think according to these tests, we learned that the people who make these tests think that they are, because it does talk about your internal life.
yes, it's not purely external.
No, it's not purely personality is not purely external.
No,
You
my
know,
irritability runs, runs deep. But how deep? That's what I wonder. Because there are some moments when I feel like not especially my it like I'm not acting out my personality. It just doesn't feel on.
what do you mean?
I don't even know. It's hard to put into words, Roar.
Like you're
But
so depressed, you're just like whatever.
no, it's just like I'm not being funny or interesting, and that's my
Oh,
personality, of course, funny
right,
and
right, 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 right,
interesting.
right, 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 right,
Just
right,
like,
right.
I'm just so blank. I'm just like walking around thinking about what anyone could be thinking about.
Yeah, I mean, maybe it's like volume levels, like like how low can your funny go? How high can your funny go?
Yeah, yeah.
The other thing is like, even, I mean, you're talking about, like, we were talking about different times in our lives talking about things, and yeah, within one day I have to go to work, I have to be home, I am interfacing with my boyfriend versus you versus no one versus coworkers, and there are opposing even personality traits that I think can come about. Maybe not opposing, but like, say for example, like, there a lot of these questions were like, do you like say what you think? Like, how sort of strident are you with your ideas, right? And of course, we know that I'm very strident personally in my life, but at work, am I really going to like bang on the desk?
Yeah, yeah. There are some places in which I, could earn a fellowship award for how much of a passive follower I am. And
Yeah,
there are
how
other places
compliant you are. There are other places like a line that people are not, like when you're in
behaving.
line at the cashier.
I did something, it would have made you laugh so hard. I got into a car accident like a few weeks back. It's a very confusing place where the road goes from 2 lanes to 3 lanes, and it's a little bit unclear where people are supposed to go. What lane is the new lane and what lane is the continuation of whatever. Okay, I'm going too hard into it. Anyways, I know what is going on in the road. I've paid very close attention to it. And, part of that was getting into an accident there. So the other day I'm driving and this girl veers out of her lane, almost into my lane, almost hitting me. And I know exactly the mistake that she was making because it's unclear. It's confusing, Roar. which lane she's supposed to be in. So I don't necessarily fault her that, except she is nose deep in her phone. She is hard in that phone. So I lower my window. We get to the red light. Yes, yes, yes. I wave at her. She waves back like, hi. I'm like, "No."
Like, who does that? What kind of interaction does she think she's having?
I know that was very confusing actually. And I'm like, no, no. And she lowers the window and I say quite politely,
Oh yeah.
um, just so you know, you veered out of your lane back there. You almost hit me. I know it's a bit confusing where the lane lines are going, but I saw that you were looking at your phone. I thought you might want to be aware of that. And she was like, okay.
Yeah, what is she supposed to say?
Well, she could have freaked out, which some people do. Some people have the attitude of like, if
Oh
I'm
yeah,
I'm right, no matter
of
what.
course, of course, of course. Yeah, actually, that should be a question on these personality tests. When you're driving, are you always right? Okay, so then we took the Enneagram test, and the Enneagram test is like, I feel like it's more work centric. Like they might give
I'm just curious about how you're pronouncing it.
what oh, I have bad phonics skills.
I I I might be wrong. I thought it was Enneagram.
Oh, you're so right. Enneagram. It is Enneagram. It is
Okay.
Enneagram. I don't stop to read things carefully in this world. So the Enneagram test, I think, is more like the type of test they might give you nowadays if you're like starting at a big company. You know what I mean? Or like on a retreat, they might be like, we're all going to take an Enneagram test.
It's so weird that big companies are like so into this world.
Big companies are into like hiring consulting firms and the consulting firms coming in and doing things for efficiency's sake.
Yeah, but it leads them into such woo. Like a lot of companies still do handwriting analysis.
Oh, or
Still.
personality tests, woo, you think?
Um, I think Enneagram's a bit woo
Oh, you do?
because it has that like pentagram associated with it.
Yeah, that circle chart. I would say these are on the very outer edges of what could be considered real science.
Handwriting analysis is so debunked. There are actually very humorous debunking videos online of handwriting analysis. And um, yeah, it's not very data driven. It's not very modern, to quote Marcus from Sex and the City.
Are you saying Enneagrams are not, personality tests are not? Or are you saying that
Personality tests, it's a little like Steno Pool. I feel like it's a little
what's
1960s.
Stenopool?
Like 1960s big firm, like
Oh,
Sterling Cooper.
oh, okay, okay. Yeah, what about those? And I really want one of those busts. What was that called? Those busts and like the head is sectioned off.
Oh, phrenology.
There we go, phrenology. Yeah.
Yeah, phrenology. Yeah, we really.
Do you think that personality tests are incapable? Do you think our personality is incapable of being determined in this way because it's just such a fluid, intrinsically fluid thing? Or do you think the right methodology has not come into being yet? Is it like early physical medicine in which they were doing everything wrong, but they had the body can be fixed and cured?
Yeah, there is stuff you can eat that will make you like early man had a sense that you can eat things, certain things that you eat will make you better from sickness. And they were wrong about all of what those were, but they were right that it was possible. And they just needed to figure out, it's not like an eggshell, it's
Yeah,
an
like the
Advil.
science needed to evolve.
The science needed to evolve. I don't know. I don't think that our personality can be determined by our face shape. Actually, no. You know
By
what?
our
I want to
face
take that
shape?
back. Weren't we talking about phrenology?
Oh, the skull? No, no, yes. I was talking, but now I was talking more about like
The
Enneagrams,
personality test.
Myers-Briggs, yeah, big five.
No, because I think Well, actually, I mean, the big five thing I think is a little more data driven. Like, I feel like that's kind of the gold standard.
Yes, I agree. And when I was doing research on personality tests, which we'll get to the big five, I think that there are certain components of it that they're considering that should be considered. It's
Also,
also
the big
quite
five doesn't
broad.
give you a type. It goes, okay, in this quality, and it's really, really detailed. It's like, okay, so under the banner of neuroticism, for instance, I got a 75, which is they told me is high,
Oh my
highly
God, you
neurotic.
were more neurotic than me?
Yeah, I'm just more.
Wow. Do you think that's true?
I do think I rate myself
I
really
think you have a
kind of
pretty low,
harshly.
I think you have a low opinion of yourself. I'm just kidding.
I answer kind of harshly because I think I'm overcorrecting for like a fear of going too easy on myself.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's like I love life, neutral. Um, it can be hard to answer some of these questions. So neuroticism, 75 high, but within that, each little element
I
of what
know, yes.
neuroticism means gets a rating too. So I have low anxiety,
Mm.
high anger,
Mm-hmm.
which I actually don't think I'm angry, but okay. So I think I'm annoyed. Neutral depression.
Oh, there we go. How classic. Those go together like a bop bop shabba.
Neutral self-conscious, high in moderation, and low vulnerability. Not vulnerable. What would Brene Brown say?
I'm low too. High
So,
scores, but look at underneath. It says high scores and vulnerability experience panic, confusion, and helplessness under pressure or stress.
oh,
Low scores feel more poised, confident, and clear thinking when stressed.
tell that to Brene.
Mm-hmm.
Um, how about
I
that?
got higher on all of these than yours, besides neuroticism, actually.
I remember that from the last time we did this. It made me made me feel a little vulnerable
Did it?
and self-conscious. Yeah, it's
Oh,
like, did she have, I was like, well, that's the thing. If personalities can have numbers, does that mean it's like you have a better personality than me?
well, I think that with the big five, there is a sense of like better and worse.
Yeah. No, I think it's about like your sort of mental health and like your outcomes later in life.
Well, and also about how much you enjoy life too.
Mhm.
Yeah, you're
Yeah.
happy, almost like your happiness factor.
You want as low as possible on neuroticism and you
Yeah,
want as high as possible on everything else, essentially.
yeah. What was your number? What were you highest on of the big five?
Openness,
Me
which I think,
too.
oh wait, no, I also agreeable was
Oh,
also high.
crazy. I got highest on openness. I'm 102.
Whoa.
I know.
I don't think of you as that open.
Me neither. Me neither. But when they break it down, obviously at adventurousness, I got so low, right? I'm not adventurous. But I'm very imaginative.
Hmm.
Obviously, I have artistic interest. I I got emotionalities under that. And we were just talking about that. I got very high on emotionality and I got high on intellect, not because I think, of course, it wasn't asking me how smart I am. It was asking you more like, do you like to think about abstract thoughts? Do you like to read challenging material? It's more of an interest, I think, than
Yes, yes. I love thinking about the mysteries of the universe.
well, we often talk about them.
We often do.
And now a few years ago, they would be too scary for me to talk about. But these days, I don't know if you noticed, my neuroticism's way low these days.
I would love to take my neuroticism down.
Of
I'm deeply
course.
neurotic. Someone
Yeah,
saw
like
me running out of the bathroom at school the other day after the flush because I used to cover the seat with.
explain the flush. Now, here's the thing though, is I think I'm the one who told you about the flush. Like, obviously, it's something that perturbs me too.
I forget like I've heard about the flush. Okay, so the idea that like flushing a toilet sprays microparticles is something I've known for a long time, but at some point in the past year or 2 years, it started becoming untenable for me. Now, I think part of that has to do with the fact that like I've worked from home for like I don't know how long, since 2017.
Mm-hmm.
So like, I've had a lot of bathroom control.
You've worked from home, and for a lot of that time, you were living alone.
Worked from home, living alone. I've had a lot of bathroom control. And now I'm back in school, and all of a sudden, here I am, and I'm having to use daily these industrial toilets that don't have a top seat.
Why public restrooms don't have a lid? It makes me feel, as these were questions, do you feel different from everyone else in society? The fact that we're all not talking and clamoring to get tops on these toilets makes me feel different from the rest of society.
It's brutal. It's brutal. And that's my Groundhog's Day, is that every day I have to confront this problem again of the toilet. Um, and, I confront my three options. I have three options, and you'd think I would just know what I do by now, but no, I have to go through the whole thing again every day. Option number one, don't
Don't
flush.
flush.
That's obviously the best option for me personally, but it's a little too immoral. So I never go with that. Option two, lay strips of horizontal toilet paper across the seat of the toilet, making a top seat.
A flimsy one, albeit.
A flimsy one, but when you flush, you see the droplets, you see the good work that you're doing.
Sick.
You see all those, and you go, that would have been on me. That would have been on me.
Literally.
Look at the bullet I just dodged. So that one is rewarding, gratifying, but makes you feel like a lunatic.
Time consuming.
And it's time consuming.
Especially with those public restroom thin toilet papers, right?
Thin toilet papers, big, long seats.
Loosey. They're loose. Going to sliding left, right, center into the toilet.
Yeah. Sometimes you accidentally touch the seat while you're doing it. And then it's like, what do you do now? What do you go home?
You cut off your hand.
Cut off your hands and go home. So I was doing that for a while, but option three is flush and run.
So you wash your hands first.
I wash my hands. I put my hand on the door handle of the door with a paper towel. And then I stretch my leg towards the flusher because I flush with my foot. So now I'm stretched across the whole bathroom, 1 foot on the flusher, one hand on the door. And then got to do it in 1 second. And like sometimes there's someone right outside and they see this like this.
Like Sonic the Hedgehog.
And you're like,
rolling
hello?
Past. Wow.
And what I don't like about that option is that it's like, it's not total. It's like, did you get a little sprayed? It's not absolute.
Yeah.
I would almost rather, and sometimes I just flush in the room and I go, and I just deal with it. Can you believe that?
Now I do that. Now, you know how I'm also germ phobic. I'm obviously a little less than you. But I, in my apartment, that lid is always down. My partner is very compliant with that. We're all good. When people come over.
Talk about those cats, though. They're not compliant with bathroom rules.
No, they are not. Thankfully, there's no flushing involved, but
they throw that sand around like it's a league of their own.
Listen, if you're a germaphobe, don't get an animal, or do, because it's good exposure. But when people come over, if say I have a couple people over, then when they leave, everything, the toilet gets alcoholed and the hand towels get changed, because I don't trust that they were flushing with the toilet seat down. So the hand towels have been corrupted. It's also why I keep my toothbrush in the medicine cabinet.
Oh, absolutely. Toothbrush outside the medicine cabinet? Are you trying
You
to brush
just,
your teeth with feces?
that's
Is
what I
that
was
your
gonna say.
goal?
You just want to use toilet water? Dip your toothbrush in that toilet water and scrub away? No.
I want to work on taking down this neuroticism number. I mean, and that's part of what brought us to this topic was I
Yes.
read this Atlantic article by, what was her name?
I don't know.
Sasha Munk, maybe.
Okay.
I don't know if it was her, but it was about, can you change your personality? And she took the Big Five test, and then she did all these exercises to change her personality in line with current psychological thinking on this topic. And she found that you could a very little bit, but not really. And like her neuroticism went up in one category, like,
So, okay. So, do we think that the big five is special in that it captures something that the other two tests that we took didn't? So, I will say that the big five is broader, as we were just talking about. It wasn't exactly like in this situation you behave this way, and it doesn't give you a cute little name like how my Myers-Briggs calls me the commander or whatever.
yeah.
So, it's a little bit broader, and it's well researched and whatever that means. So I think that they spent a long time before they just distilled it down to these five factors. And then I read that like nowadays though, like some people say it's a big six, whatever.
What I think is more accurate about it is precisely the thing that it doesn't give you a little name.
Yeah.
Just tells you your scores on each one of these metrics, because you can be like, I feel like with like the INFJ or whatever, the mediator, what I got,
Mm-hmm.
there's going to be people right in the center of what it means to be a mediator. And there's going to be people who, if they had answered two more questions this way, they would have been in the next batch,
Mm-hmm.
because they're batched. They're batched. The big five is not put in batches. It's just, here are your scores on each one of these metrics. So I think that has a potential to be more indicative than something that's giving you a batched response.
Yeah, totally agree. I mean, yeah, like with the Enneagram, I got 8. The
Which I did
Challenger,
too.
which I think is, yeah, we're both the Challenger. So again, a cutesy little name. And then it gives you like these very specific traits that you're supposed to be. And Enneagram really didn't resonate with me very well at all. The other thing is like our cultural obsession with our personalities. But the same way that we're obsessed with astrology, certain people can be obsessed with their personality type. Or even if they don't know their personality type, they're obsessed with the way they are. I'm the type of person who,
Yes, we love that.
And I think it's fine if it's, you don't take it too seriously, like all things of this nature. But the second that you start have your blinders on and become fixed, is the second you're closing yourself off to growth, of course, and to just like not enjoying, you're limiting yourself. You're not really like having an authentic interaction with the present moment or the people around you.
You're not treating yourself as a thou, let's say. No, you're an it. Now, as for being obsessed with personality types, like people, so there's this type of conversation that I think often happens with coworkers. It's like a very coworker type conversation where it's like some sort of topic is thrown into the center of the room. It won't be there for long. You're switching at a breakneck pace.
Mm-hmm.
Coffee. What time you drink your first cup of coffee? Oh, I need my coffee the second I wake up. And then the next person's like, I cannot drink coffee the second I wake up. I need to wait like 2 hours. And then 2 hours later, everyone sort of states their position. The thing in the middle is coffee. And everyone states their position to it. And then after that, like a new thing is thrown into the middle. Could you,
Could you get married to someone online from a different country and go through the visa process and bring them over as a 90-day fiance?
Yeah, exactly. So, like, do you know what I'm talking about? Do you relate to this type of conversation? Do you
Absolutely. And actually, I just started a new job and they have formalized this. So they have this thing called snack time where everyone comes in on a Wednesday. And to kick off the conversation, they ask a question like this. Now, it's not always, of course, I know that or I assume that what you're talking about also runs the gamut. It's not necessarily something like the way you do something. So, for example, the first question that I've experienced, the only snack time question was, what's one new thing you want to do this year? And
Mm-hmm.
that, of course, opens itself up to, oh, I want to go skydiving. Oh, you've never been skydiving? I would go skydiving. I would never go skydiving.
Yes.
I would go on roller coasters. I would never go on a roller coaster, but I would go skydiving, but not bungee jumping.
Skydiving is actually a perfect example of the type of thing that I'm saying because it it's this it's this thing where every answer to it can sort of be marketed as like as interesting, like, oh, I would definitely do that. I'm a real go-getter. Or like, what? You're crazy. I would never do that. I'm a real sane person,
Yeah.
like, and it really is just this like declaration of like, I'm this type of person. It's so dreary. It's utterly dreary. And yeah, it's just we're just all being a bunch of its and not thous. We're all being a bunch of
Mhm.
I it relationships and not I thou relationships.
Now, and here's the thing is that I'm someone who likes small talk, and I think small talk gets a bad rap. But when I say small talk, I'm not talking about like, would you go skydiving? I'm talking about a one-on-one conversation where I ask you things like where you're from, which is interesting to me, and we could actually have like a real connection over, not where we're all like in a larger group, kind of shouting out answers, just waiting to speak.
Yes. Well, I mean, we have these class meetings for my cohort at school, and they're very like, there are people in the group, there are factions in the group who are opposed to free conversation. Okay. So I stopped going actually. So I don't have a dog in the race anymore, but
That's how much you
um,
hated it.
kind of. And then, there, I said to the group once, I was like, I'm into community and I'm into connection. Like it's not that I'm not into community, it's not that I'm not into connection.
Ditto.
I don't think that this is the way to do it. Like, because what happens is we get together, we go around in a circle with a prompt. And like I remember once we were there and it was like sort of the 5 to 10 minutes before everyone arrived and got settled and people were still like eating their lunch, whatever. And I was having like a really nice conversation, small talk. I was
Yeah,
having some
exactly.
real small talk with someone who I don't always connect with. And then we got pulled, yanked, torn like sleepwalkers woken from a dream and pulled into this circle conversation where we had to answer a prompt and I felt so robbed and
Yeah.
and annoyed to speak to my personality quality of high of irritability and indignant. I often feel indignant.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
love I love feeling indignant, frankly.
Mhm. Well, you're a righteous man.
I'm a righteous
You're
man,
righteous.
self-righteous.
These personalities, we can get too invested in them. And I think they're just this kind of like, they're not that different from astrology to me. Like, this is the soft sciences of the softest sense of the word.
Yeah.
And I don't find anyone else's personality, test results terribly interesting. I find my own, but I know that no one could possibly find mine interesting either.
Well, I hope you found mine interesting.
Well, of course. But oh, you know what I wish we had done?
What?
Taken the tests on each other's behalf to see what didn't compare answers.
All right, we'll do that and we'll quickly discuss it at like the end of our next episode.
Okay.
Be
Because
like,
that was
just
another
follow up.
that was another big question I think you and I had. Like, do I know myself better than anyone else? And I thought about that question a lot. Like, because there are certain people in my life where I'm like, you really don't know yourself.
Yeah. And I also
You're lacking in self-awareness. And then at the same time, like, I don't know the depths of their soul or the things that they think about or what's in their heart. And no one could ever know that about someone, obviously. So I think it's just like a mixture of both, really. Like, I think you're unknowable to yourself and unknowable to the outside person.
Yeah. Well, okay. Well, I have two things that I want to say to that. One is that a lot of these questions I answered by picturing what someone who knows me well would say.
Mm.
Because I was like, am I cheerful? And I like had to, I don't know. Like I
Well,
had to,
that's actually some of the questions were phrased like people have told me that I seem sad.
yeah.
And that I found those easier to answer because well, no one's ever really told me that.
Yeah. I mean, those are definitely easier to answer. But also, another thing I want to say is that do you ever have moments where you're like, this would seem not self aware to someone on the outside? What they don't know is that I am aware and I'm just not in control.
So is that,
Exactly.
like that's the thing also is like with if you're trying to change a personality trait or a behavior, people are always like awareness, that's the biggest step. It's like absolutely it is not.
Awareness.
Awareness really gets you 10% of the way.
But you do
You
you need
need
it?
it.
You need it.
You need it. But it's truly the first of many steps if you want to
Well,
make it.
that's what I hate about the way, and I rarely say that there's something I hate about Frasier, but one thing I hate about the way psychiatry is portrayed in Frasier is they're always like, well, now that you've become aware of the problem, it's
Yes.
moved from the subconscious to the conscious and it's
And it's
been
over.
resolved.
Yeah.
It's like, that is so
Not how
not
it
how it
works.
works at all.
No. Maybe Freud thought that though.
And I actually don't think the awareness, I I don't think it helps at all. I think it's what allows you, like the headlights don't move the car forward. Okay? They show you where the road is.
Yeah.
You
But the
need them to
thing,
drive,
you need them.
but it's not, the headlights actually don't have anything to do with the forward propulsion.
Well, it's like when I started therapy for exposure therapy, and you have to have the awareness to go to exposure therapy. You have to be like say you have an irrational fear of going outside. Some people might just be like, well, that's my personality. I'm an introvert.
Yeah.
Some people might be like, you have to have the awareness that it's negatively impacting your life. Okay. And that
Yeah.
gets you to therapy. And then our therapist, the thing he said is like, it honestly doesn't, you have to want to change.
Yeah.
A lot of people, they might be aware of it, but they don't want to change.
Like how you don't want to do exposure therapy for,
Rodents.
yeah, you're not interested.
Nope. Now, I feel like I have like people in my life who think maybe it's because I'm a bad person. Because I was thinking about these questions and like certain people in my life who have like, I feel like they're my close friends, but they have like negative perceptions of me. Anyway, so I was thinking about like, how would this person say I am versus Matt, who has a more fond, generous view of myself?
Yeah. I mean, I think what we are getting to here
Yeah,
is,
like, sorry, before you finish, because I know you're going to sum it up very nicely, but could you imagine if your old roommate took the test for you?
oh my God. Yeah. He blocked me on Facebook. Can you believe that?
Yeah, it's funny because you hated him so much and he hates you just as much.
Just as much. Just as much.
Yeah.
But I tried to reconcile. So I think what we're getting to here is that we don't really, first of all, we're dubious about the accuracy,
Yes.
more than dubious about self-knowledge being like a key to change, like in such a big way. And we're also in some sort of agreement that this like endless prattling on
Ugh,
about which type of person you are is like the very essence of dreariness,
it's
and
deeply dull.
it's deeply dull. um I mean, you and I, we do enjoy sort of, do we enjoy talking about like, we enjoy talking about our neuroses, you know, it's not that we don't like talking about, you know, the ongoing experience of the self.
We definitely do, but I don't think that it is. I think that there are two sort of paths we take with it. One is the humorous.
Oh
You
yes.
know, I love to tell you an insane thing I thought or did. And likewise, like your toilet story, which I find deeply entertaining. Of course, who wouldn't? It's an entertaining
Great.
story. And that has to do with the personality, you know?
Hmm.
And then the other is we try and extrapolate what it might mean for broader implications. I think when it becomes boring is when you're just sort of like thinking the fact that you would want to go skydiving is so interesting and it ends there.
And it ends right there. The
Personality tests are the ego. The
yes.
ego
Who am I?
codified.
Well, and isn't that the pleasure? You know, like I have a friend who does like birth charts, and she's like talked to me about my birth chart like a million times. It's like there's no new information there, but I just enjoy hearing it. I'm like, and you know, my friend Jesse always talks about like the pleasure of having someone tell you things about yourself that
Oh,
like maybe you didn't think about. Like you're always doing that, you
yeah.
know? And it's like, am I? Like when Charlotte says to Carrie, like, what's the difference between strutting down the runway and the way you strut down Fifth Avenue?
Do I strut?
Do I strut? And like she loves it, you
Yeah,
know? We love, we love. It's dreary, but we love.
it's true, but we love ourselves, you know?
You love.
You'll love. And I mean, it's good to love the self, but is it good to love your personality?
Yeah.
You know, not in a spiritual sense.
Well, I mean, in my philosophy of religion class freshman year, which we know is a very influential class for me, we read this like book, spiritual book about the Enneagram. It was like the
Oh.
Enneagram of the spirit. Like, and Nancy Baker was like, I know it's cheesy, but this book has some good ideas in it. Um, Nancy Baker, by the way, my professor can't get her on the horn, trying desperately to have her. Here's something about my personality: love to have mentors, hounding down those mentors. And sometimes they're slippery.
Never been in that kind of relationship. Maybe I'm aging out of it even.
No, one never ages out of having mentors. You know, mentors your whole life. My dad has mentors.
Oh, oh, it's a family thing.
It's a family thing. Oh, I never have mentors. I love having mentors.
Exactly.
I
I
have
was just
mentors,
gonna
but
say that.
only
Yeah.
before 11. I
I have
have mentors, but
mentors,
only
but
if they're
only
my
that I
friends.
jump out of a plane with.
Yeah.
So I think in conclusion,
Is it how to be? No. Is it
no,
how we are? Kind of.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And I
Yeah.
mean, if you take it with a grain of salt and have a little bit of fun with it,
More power to you.
more power to you.
This wine I'm drinking is terrible. This second glass,
Not cold enough.
just bad.
I like my wine cold.
I like my wine cold sometimes.
Cold in
That's
the
what it is.
summer, warm in
Yeah.
the winter.
Well, let's try to remember like the next time we find ourselves in that conversation, which will be soon because it's all pervasive. And you too, listeners, pay attention,
Pay attention to how
notice it,
charming you think
and find a
you're.
way out.
All right, Matt, good night.
Good night and God bless you.